What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Gig Nation. Jonathan here. Today we're looking at an Uber case that has been going on for about a year now, and I wanted to switch it up and cover some of this Uber news because it's really important for the rideshare industry and the development as a whole. So we saw this tragic accident in Arizona take place about a year ago, and now we're finally seeing some of the decisions that have taken place and some of that responsibility actually being placed on Uber. But the responsibility wasn't entirely placed on Uber. There was actually also some responsibility placed on the driver of that vehicle who was supposed to be monitoring it, and also the victim herself was named partially responsible for this accident. So there's a lot to kind of break down and look through, and we're going to pull up an article from The Verge here and kind of get through all the details here and understand why this happened. So it's really important because self-driving vehicles were a major component of ride sharing, and a lot of companies were pouring a ton of money into this, hoping to develop those vehicles quickly, kind of appease their investors and push that technology forward. But when you're working with a new technology like this, safety is the number one concern, and Uber had thought that they had done enough to put the proper safety protocols and mechanisms into place, but what we're finding out is that they actually did not. And so what we're seeing in these findings is that Uber has actually been named partially responsible, and for a couple of reasons. And for one, they failed to recognize the autonomous complacency of the driver who was supposed to man the vehicle. She was supposed to be making sure that if anything happened in the vehicle that was dangerous, if the self-driving technology didn't work, then she was basically supposed to be an override on that system. But what the findings have told us is that essentially those vehicle drivers are put in place into such a boring job that they become complacent. They don't feel like they're needed or they're really doing anything, so they get easily distracted and don't actually monitor the vehicle. So Uber did actually have another safety mechanism in place to make sure that if this driver was at all distracted, that they would be monitored and that something could be done about this. And essentially what was happening is Uber installed cameras in the vehicle to monitor that driver. But what the findings are telling us is that there wasn't a dedicated person actually watching that driver. So we had more complacency on Uber's part to actually follow through and use those cameras to monitor the drivers while they were out there on the road. Now, with all of these things considered, it actually wasn't found that it was entirely Uber's fault. Part of the blame was placed on the driver. She was definitely distracted while she was driving. What they found is that she spent about 30% of the time while driving the vehicle actually on her phone watching The Voice. So, I haven't actually spent any time watching The Voice. I'm sure it's a good distracting show, but when you're driving a vehicle and your one job is to make sure that, the safety of the vehicle is maintained, then obviously being distracted by something like The Voice is not something that you can allow to happen. And beyond just the driver's responsibility, we actually found that the victim herself was partially responsible. And now this is a tragic event. Obviously the entire, sequence of events here we wish could have been avoided. But it was found that the victim actually had methamphetamine in her system before she was hit. So it's possible that she was distracted and that she did make decisions that, could have actually contributed to this accident. And with all of that said, you really do hope that these self-driving vehicles and these companies making the self-driving vehicles take away a lesson from this. It looks like they definitely have, because instead of aggressively pushing to get this technology out there, they've really taken a step back, and safety is going to become even more important going forward because of this case and the way that it worked out. One of the major takeaways that these companies that are looking to pursue self-driving vehicle technology can learn from this is to improve the safety of vehicles when it comes to pedestrians crossing the street outside of designated crosswalks. And so these vehicles are very good at monitoring crosswalks, but when it comes to pedestrians doing normal human things, committing human errors, maybe jaywalking, maybe being in places where the vehicle wouldn't expect them to be, all of a sudden the vehicle is not very good at monitoring this. And in a world where lots of things end up being out of order, the self-driving vehicles may not be expecting things to take place outside of their pre-programmed, expectations for where people cross the street, what other cars are going to be doing. You really have to make sure that these vehicles are able to react to circumstances like that. And let me know what you think down below in the comment sections. I'd love to hear from you. Do you think that self-driving cars should still be put out there on the road, or do you think that they're too dangerous and that this technology should be pushed back, years and years out there until we have the proper mechanisms in place and more testing done. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more gig economy updates.